Today we're going to learn how to create this teleporting or apparating effect that you see within Harry Potter, while also giving it our own unique flair. We're also going to be learning how to like this video and subscribe. If you watch this screen recording, you can see it's a very simple two-step process to get it done. And maybe next week we'll talk about the bell notification, but I digress. Let's do it. With this effect, we're pulling from Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince with how they do the Apparate effect in that film. All the other films, they do it a little differently. So for this tutorial, we're going to be learning how to accomplish that, but also we added a unique spin to it to suit our story in this short film. So you're going to be learning also how to add some flavor. So right here in After Effects, you can see I have two layers of the exact same file. We have one of our actor standing at the door, and he's shrugging his body down on command as if that's when he's teleporting. And then the file on top is just the same shot with him not in it, so a base plate. So the first thing we want to do is we want to go through our footage, find exactly when he starts to shrug, and we can get it right there, looks good. And we Control-Shift-D, and that's going to cut our layer in half right here. We're going to delete the right side of it. And then we're going to take the top layer, which is the layer without him, and we are going to Control-Shift-D exactly at the same frame. And now we are left with him here, and he shrugs, and now he's gone. Next thing we're going to do here is we're going to duplicate the layer with our actor in it. So Control-D, we can bring it up top, and we can extend it out back to the full length of our work area. And then take our bottom two layers, select both of them, right mouse click, and select Pre-Compose. And we're going to name this Base Layer, and then hit OK. So now we have the bottom layer, the base layer of him there and him gone. So now with the duplicated layer, we're going to Control-Alt-D again on the exact frame again as before. Delete now the left side, and then we're going to go 4 frames ahead. Now you can do that by grabbing the current time indicator right here, sliding it around, or you can hit the page down button, which is going to bring you a frame forward. If we hit that button right now, you can see a frame forward, another frame forward, and we hit the page up, it's going to bring it back. So we can go right from where we cut the clip, go 1, 2, 3, 4, and that is going to be the length of the effect that we're going to be doing. So we can Control-D and cut the rest of the clip off, and now we're just left with this 4-frame clip. Now let's create a mask around our subject right here within these 4 frames. And there's our mask right there around our subject. Now we don't need to keyframe this mask at all within the 4 frames because you can see our dude doesn't really move hardly at all. So it'll be fine with just the mask that we have right here. Now we want to add the mesh warp effect. So we're going to right mouse click on our shot. We're going to go to Effect, Distort, and then select Mesh Warp. Now you can see on the Mesh Warp we're left with this grid set up, and this grid represents these anchor points where the lines are crossing in which we can warp the shot. Now you can see right here it's not doing anything. That's because we have it on the masked layer, so it's only going to be right here. So if I take this right here and stretch it, you can see our actor now is being stretched and warped around. And we can keyframe these anchor points as well, and that's what we're going to do. But before we do that, we want to change, if you look over here in the effects panel, we want to change the rows. It's on 7, we want to change it to 20, and we want to change the columns to 20 as well. That's basically going to give us a lot more options when it comes to warping our subject. So before we do anything, we want to make sure we're on the frame at the beginning of our layer, which we are. We want to go up to Distortion Mesh right here and select the stopwatch, and that's going to create a keyframe. If we select U on the keyboard, you're going to see the keyframe show up right here. So we're all good with that. And now we can start warping our subject and keyframing those to animate the warp. Now if I grab, let's say I want to grab this anchor point right here. If I go to grab it, I might accidentally grab the mask instead since it's so close, and that can get annoying. So to avoid that, we can go down here, and you can see right here the toggle mask and shape path visibility. We can click that, and now our mask is invisible, and we don't have to worry about accidentally grabbing our mask anymore. So let's go ahead and start warping our subject and slowly creating him to a backward C type shape, crunching him down smaller and smaller. So for our first frame, we can see here how he's slowly becoming this slight curve. And that's really what we want to keep on doing. We're gonna go to the next frame and just curve it more and more in. And you're gonna notice with this, it's gonna get a little chaotic with all these anchor points getting moved around and getting crunched down. But just take a breath and know the effect is gonna work out in the end. Now that we're done with our mesh warp effect, we are left with this. Pretty wonky, but let's go ahead and keep going. Now we want to keyframe the scale and rotation of our subject. So we want to hit S on our layer, and you'll see scale comes up. Hit the stopwatch to create a keyframe, and then we can hit R to have rotation come up. Hit the stopwatch for a keyframe, and then we hit U, and we can see both of them are up now with the keyframes. So before we actually keyframe these, we want to adjust our anchor point. Now the anchor point you can see is right here. However, I like to have it more of a center frame, right where like his butt is right there. Now you can move the anchor point by going up to your tools right here and click the anchor point tool, or select Y. You can also, if we want to just dead center in our composition right here, we can also Control Alt Home, and you can see now it is dead center. And I think that point works just fine. So we want to go 3 frames ahead so we can still see our subject, and then scale it down to 0, and then rotate it to -120. And now take those 2 keyframes and move them to the final frame of our layer. So right there, just 1 frame ahead. And now we're left with this. And looking at that, I think I actually want to change the rotation to -180 just to have them rotate a little bit more, and we can check that out. And that looks good. So now we're going to add a motion blur to it. And you can see now we're getting, we're getting motion blur. As he's shrinking down, we're getting a nice natural blur to where it's moving. So let's name this layer main layer. So now we're going to duplicate this layer, Control D. Now take the top layer, put it on the bottom, and we're going to rename that to Pink Glow. And now what we're going to do is add this pink glow behind our subject. So right mouse click on the pink glow layer, go to Effect, Generate, and we're going to add a fill to it. And with this fill, you can see we have the color red selected. If I solo this layer, we can see it's just what we've warped and what we've masked is now just filled with the color red. Instead of red though, we're going to give it a purplish pink, somewhere about right there. It looks pretty solid. And then we're going to take this shot and we're going to move it over to the left just a little bit. I'm using the arrow keys to do just slight adjustments to the movement within the composition. And now we're going to add a glow to it. So right mouse click, Effect, Stylize, Glow. And in the glow effect options right here, we're going to leave basically everything the same except for our glow radius. We're going to change to 90. You can see that's going to give it a nice fuzziness, blur, feathered effect on the edges. And the last thing we're going to do is change the blending mode from normal to add. Now we're going to duplicate that layer again, and we're going to name this Blue Glow. And we're going to take this shot and shift it over to the right now, just a little bit, and change the fill from this pinkish purple now to a blue. I like that blue. That blue looks good. What a great guess. And everything is going to stay the exact same. We already have the add blending mode, the glow since we copied and paste, and now let's check it out. So you can see now we have the same teleport effect, but now with this cartoon glow around our subject. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to duplicate our main layer again. And now we can leave it on top. We're going to rename this duplication to Glitch Shapes. And we're going to hit M to bring up our mask. And we're actually going to delete the mask so we have our full shot. Now we're going to turn off the motion blur on that shot. Right mouse click, go to Effect, Stylize, and put another glow on it. And for this glow, we're going to adjust the threshold from 60 to 58. We're going to put the radius at 6, and we're going to put the intensity at 1.2. Now we're going to add a hue effect to it, so Effect, Color Correction, and go to Hue/Saturation. And then we're going to change the hue to give it a blue hue. How many times can I say hue?
Bend the knee and touch the sky!
Right there looks amazing. So now we're going to right mouse click on our glitch shape layer and we're going to pre-compose it. We can leave the title glitch shapes comp, that's totally fine. We want to uncheck this leave all attributes tab right here. We want to check the move all attributes into a new composition. We're going to do that, hit OK. And now you can see our small little 4-framed layer has now taken up the full work area. I just think that looks ugly, so let's cut off the front and the end parts. And now we are left with this comped image that has compressed all the effects. The reason we do that is because what we're about to do is add these glitches, these glitch shape layers to our shot. If we were not to pre-compose it, let's say I was to create a mask on this area that's not pre-composed, there's a few things that happen. It's actually pretty bizarre. The first thing is, there's a glitch in After Effects. I can't explain it. Something about the effects that I put on it. If I have my pen tool right here to make a mask, if I click and click again, you can see it doesn't even pop up, doesn't pop up. The other reason is, if we're creating a mask within that shot, it's not going to apply to the mesh warp that we've already created. And so in other words, whatever shape we make is gonna still be warped by the mesh warp effect when we want straight triangles and square type shapes for this glitch. So now with this shape layer comp selected, we can start creating little shapes. So I'm going to create triangles and rectangles, and that's about all the shapes that my education taught me. Now we've created all these shapes right here on the first frame. We're going to take the layer and change the blending mode to add. That's going to give a nice glow to all of our shapes. And now we're going to hit M, and we can see all of the masks that we've created pop up, 11 in total. If we select mask 1, hold down shift and select the last mask, which is mask 11. It's going to select all of them, and then we can hit the stopwatch for mask path to create keyframes for every single one. We can go a frame ahead and now just adjust those shapes to just basically look like a whole new set of shapes for this new frame. So now we have all the shapes done. If we go frame by frame, you can see how there's no blur to them. We don't have the motion blur set. If we did set the motion blur, you can see that blurred out. I don't want that. I want them to be sharply edged as if they are glitches within an old VHS tape. So what I want to do to this real fast is right mouse click, effect, stylize, and add another glow effect. We're going to take this glow effect and again put the radius at 60. You can see it's going to give a nice feather. Now it's kind of hard to see that with all these masks being shown. So again, we can go to the toggle mask button, select that, and now we can see better. So if we deselect the effect and reselect it, you can see it's just a nice subtle feather. What we're going to do now is we're going to take that shape layer and just simply duplicate it, keep both those layers, and what we've done is just added more glow, more intensity to the shapes we've created. If I turn off the top one, turn it back on, you can see it's more intense. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to duplicate our main layer again. So Control D, we're going to bring it to the very top. We're going to call this layer just glow. Now we're going to turn off the mask, so we'll just totally delete it. We're going to right mouse click, effect, and add, you guessed it, another glow effect to it. Then we're going to go to effect, blur, and we're going to add a radial blur. We're going to take the amount that's set on 10, and we're going to put it to 100. And that's going to make the image crazy with this circular type motion blur. Well, not motion blur, but circular blur. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to Effect, Color Correction, and do another Hue effect. Change the hue again to something blue, maybe even a lighter blue than what we did before. I'm happy with that, pretty similar. Change the blending mode to Add, and now we're going to go up to our Ellipse tool. If the Ellipse tool is not seen, if it's just a square or any other type of shape, click and hold down. You'll see the other tools pop up. We're going to select the Ellipse tool and create an ellipse circular mask around our subject, like so. And with our glow layer selected, we're going to hit F on the keyboard. It's going to bring up our mask feather option. And we're going to take this right here and set it to something such as 1000. So big time, feather out the edge here. Something I like to do too is select T on our layer of glow, and that's gonna bring up the opacity option. Hit the stopwatch, and then go to the final frame and hit it to 0. And now we're just going to have this nice explosion of this glow around our subject as soon as the effect starts, and it's just slowly going to fade out as he's going away. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a slight dust element at the base of his feet for where his feet are kicking off this ground. And with that, we're using the Video Copilot's Action Essentials pack. Now, this does cost money, and they're not a sponsor either, but I will say, if you are interested in editing or After Effects or any filmmaking at all, Action Essentials pack is, well, I guess essential. So we're gonna take this dust shot, we're gonna right mouse click on it and go to time stretch and change it to 50, because all these shots in Video Copilot's Action Essentials pack are a little bit slow. So I like to speed them up a little bit. And at the dust wave, we're gonna put it right at the feet right here. So the positioning looks good right there. We need to create a mask around it to get rid of this line here down at the base here of all this dust. So we just create a mask that's kind of curving around where the bottom of it is, curve it back up, go all the way around. Now we have this wonky oval. Hit F with our layer selected and put the feather to 25. Hit T on our keyboard with our layer selected. Stopwatch the opacity to create a keyframe, and then just go a little bit ahead. You can go pretty far past the effect, and then just bring it down to 0 so we have a nice fade out of this dust. So now we're getting to the end of this effect. We're almost there. We're going to select every single layer we've done here, right mouse click, and we're going to pre-compose and just call it Teleport Effect. So now that we have all of our effects compressed into one layer, we're going to add the final little touch, the final little spice to this effect, which is a nice camera shake to really give that oomph within the effect of him teleporting. And you can see it in the Harry Potter shots as well. They have this nice little camera wobble, so that's what we're copying. So if we duplicate this layer, go to exactly when the effect starts, so right there, Control-Alt-D, cut the end off. And then, as we know, our effect is 4 frames long. Let's make it 5 frames of this, of the camera shaking, just to have it shake a little bit longer past the effect. And then if we select P to see position, we hold down Alt and select the stopwatch. That's gonna bring up our expressions panel. And we wanna type in wiggle and then put 25, 25. And that's going to create this expression of wiggling the position within our shot. So if I extend this shot real fast just so we can see, you can see the shot is just wiggling like crazy. Now we're going to add a wiggle effect to the rotation as well. So if we hit R and then hold down Alt, click the stopwatch again, we type wiggle and then parentheses 3 by 3, 5. So now we're left with the position wiggling and a slight rotation wiggle. We want to add a motion blur to give it more realism. And lastly, you can see with it wiggling, if I solo this layer, you can see that our frame is getting cut off because the shot is moving within our window. So to fix that, we're just going to hit S and scale up the shot just a little bit. 103 should be just fine. And we also want to scale up the other layer as well so they match in scale. And after all of that editing, we are left with our final effect. So let's look at it. Boom, that's it. Congratulations, people. We have learned how to create this apparate. I hate saying that word, apparate. You know, when I read the books, I was always like, this just doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound natural to say. Just say teleport, Harry Potter. You've learned how to do this effect. You have now also learned how to, on a beginner level, use the Mesh Warp tool. You have learned about simple layering and blending modes, how to add glows and hues, and you have learned how to create this effect with also a nice different flavor. Or maybe you fell asleep while watching this and you learned not a thing. Either way, thanks for watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, like, follow. Just keep working hard to become a better editor, keep making great content, and remember, this editing thing and this filmmaking thing, it's not really that hard. It just takes a lot of work. That's hard. Put that on a t-shirt.